The widening gap between the rich and poor is glaring. Whatever the race, gender, education, or income, according to the data, if you earn below the 90th percentile, the relentlessly upward redistribution of income since 1975 is coming out of your pocket. Those incomes at or below the median saw little growth over the last 40 years. On the other hand, the top of the distribution saw higher and more consistent growth. By 2018, the 400 richest Americans were paying a lower overall tax rate than almost anyone else. During the first 19 months of the pandemic, U.S. billionaires added $2.1 trillion to their collective wealth. To put that into perspective, billionaires collectively hold two-thirds more wealth than the bottom 50% of all households in the United States, according to the Institute for Policy Studies. And the closer look reveals the extent of the racial wealth gap. According to the Brookings Institution, the net worth of the typical white family was nearly 10 times greater than that of the black family in 2016. America's identity politics fueled division. A recent survey found that 43% of black Americans do not believe America will ever make the changes necessary to give blacks equal rights. When people feel mistreated, they respond. They become more defensive, more us versus them. Race is shown to be one of the most important factors in American democracy. It determines which candidates win elections, which voters win at the polls, and who is on the losing end of policy. These are the key conclusions of the book, Dangerously Divided: How Race and Class Shape Winning and Losing in American Politics. And race is raising temperatures in the U.S. to the boiling point.
I feel like it was a long time coming. Between the police brutality, the economic disparity, the wealth gap, and just the underlying racial tones going on in America, it was like a boiling pot. And the George Floyd, it exploded everything.
In May 2020, George Floyd, a black American, lost his life in Minnesota because of law enforcement violence by the police. His death shocked the nation, and his life has become a symbol of racial injustice and police brutality. Afterwards, protests erupted and the demonstrations continued more than 100 days after Floyd's death. In August 2020, Jacob Blake, a 29-year-old black man, was left partly paralyzed after a white police officer shot him 7 times in the back outside an apartment in Kenosha, Wisconsin.
What gave them the right to attempted murder on my child? What gave them the right to think that my son was an animal? What gave them the right to take something that was not theirs to take? I'm tired of this.
In April 2021, 21-year-old black man Daunt White was shot and killed in Brooklyn Center, Minneapolis. There's a long list of names and places of the strained race relations. Rodney King in Los Angeles, Trayvon Martin in Florida, Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri.
It just got more advanced. It didn't go away. I think people, when they hear racism, they think of, someone calling you the N-word. But it's evolved beyond that. Like, racism is systematic now. It's in the finances, it's in the education system that I've been in. I've been in New York City public schools.
The world woke up. Finally, their eyes are open to what we already knew.
In reality, not a lot of people like to hear this, but slavery was never over. It just evolved into an acceptable form. So if I create the conditions in your community where you're impoverished, so you have to do crime to eat, right? It makes the narrative very easy, and you just gotta take it. And it was like that every time I got stopped and frisked. I got belittled every time. I remember one time I was walking with my boy. We're walking towards my house. I hear the hammer from the gun click, right? It's a robbery. So what do? Do I run? I turn around, it's a bunch of cops behind me, unannounced with guns drawn. I could have been dead. That's normal policing in America. So when I see the George Floyd thing and people is like, oh, we need to see more and we don't know what happened, I'm like, bro, I experienced that.
The Washington Post began to log every fatal shooting by an on-duty police officer since January the 1st, 2015. Since then, there have been more than 5,000 such shootings recorded. Although half of the people shot and killed by police are white, Black Americans are shot at a disproportionate rate. They account for less than 13% of the U.S. population, but are killed by police at more than twice the rate of white Americans.
There's plenty of killers on the force. They know it. The guy who killed George Floyd, he had mad incidents. He had frequent incidents on this thing. There's an incentive to keep black people in the position that they are because someone's benefiting off of it. If no one was benefiting off of it, they would fix it.